Welcome back to J48 Ministries, where today Jonathan Pike will continue with Rapture Watch as we focus on Israel's current events.
Alrighty, thank you, Will. All right, today in Israel, y'all, there's a lot of things going on. If you're not watching Israel, you do not have a clue what the Bible is talking about. You have to keep your eyes on Israel. Israel's the key. He is the apple of God's eye. And you must keep your eyes on Israel and on current events. Now, I will tell you, the news is not just going to give you the events and what's going on in Israel. You must dig, you must look, and be careful of the resources you use. But Israel has their own news outlets. Go look up Israel. See what's happening. See what's going on in and around Israel. Now, currently, right now in Israel, some of the things that's happening according to our Bible, and that's what I love about this. This isn't just things that we're coming up with, things that are just happening. This is what our Bible told us will happen, okay? All right, so currently in Israel right now, we are at the end of an administration, the Trump administration, and we're ready to move into the Biden administration. Now, I want to tell you there is a huge difference between the two and our relationship with Israel. And I'm really basing a lot of this on the Obama administration days when Joe Biden was the vice president. But some of the same policies that President Obama incorporated, Joe Biden is wanting to once again incorporate some that Trump got rid of, and I'll go into that more in just a moment. But one thing I want you to understand, and I want you to be key and remember about the Bible, the United States of America is not in the Bible. If we are mentioned in the Bible, it would be in one small little verse right here, and we're going to get all of our text today from Ezekiel 38. But then there's one little verse right here that says Tarshish and its young lions. Now, them young lions can refer to as us. Tarshish would be northern Europe, which would also be Great Britain. And if you will remember, at one time in history, which was probably 100, maybe 150, 200 years ago, it was said that the sun never sets on Britain's flag. All right, because they had land all over the world. America was once a British state, British territory, until the Revolutionary War, of course, and we become the United States of America. But my point is this: Tarshish, we are a product of Tarshish, a young lion of Tarshish. And when you look at our history, we're not that old compared to the rest of the world as a nation. All right, so when it says a young lion, that could very well mean us. But here's the point: we don't do nothing, and that comes from Ezekiel 38:13. We do not do anything to help Israel. Now that's the key. I want y'all to understand something right now. Under Donald Trump, under this current administration that's on this way out, if anything would have happened to Israel, I will promise you that we would have stepped in, we would have helped out Israel. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem. Now, it's really fascinating about this because it was actually passed into law, I believe, during the Bill Clinton administration, all right? And all these presidents since then, Bill Clinton, George Bush, Barack Obama, have said, we're moving the embassy. We're moving the embassy to Jerusalem because there again, it was a law that we would be moving our embassy to Jerusalem. But for whatever reason, and for whatever case it may be, they did not. They claim to be keeping peace in the Middle East. Whatever. My point is this: Donald Trump did it, all right? He said he was going to do it, and he did it. Those other presidents said they would do it, but they did not do it, all right? But Donald Trump kept this promise. And it's very funny that at that speech, when we opened our embassy in the our new embassy in Jerusalem, and this took place roughly May 14th, 2018, okay? This was the 71st anniversary of Israel still being a nation when we declared Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, said this in his speech. He says, "Thank you, thank you, thank you, President Trump, for having the courage to keep your promise. Thank you, President Trump, and thank you all for making the alliance between America and Israel stronger than ever." All right, so now that just kind of backs my point. That's the Prime Minister of Israel. He was clearly saying, he says, us in America are stronger than ever, all right? And if anybody would have messed with Israel, America and Donald Trump would have attacked, all right? Now, under this current administration, things are changing. And I want to make this point too. When he said all these things, listen what he said. He says, the prophet Zechariah, this is coming from Benjamin Netanyahu at the same speech. He says, the prophet Zechariah declared over 2,500 years ago, "So said the Lord, I will return to Zion, and I will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, and Jerusalem shall be called the city of truth." Y'all, I'm telling you, you are seeing prophecy being fulfilled the last couple of years when this embassy moved there, when Jerusalem was once again declared the capital of Israel. And all this has happened in the last couple of years. And they have actually had control of Jerusalem since 1967, the Six-Day War of 1967. So it goes to show you they've had Jerusalem for a very long time. But because of the current events of the world and the world trying to get them to give that land back to the Arabs and the Palestinians, they have not recognized it as the capital of Israel. Although our Bible has clearly said over and over and over that Jerusalem is the capital all the way back to the days of King David. Okay, so now here we go. And Zechariah prophesied that this will happen again, and it did in 2018, y'all. Very, very significant event. Once again, rolling over into 2020, and now look where we're at with all these other current events. All right, so you're seeing so much prophecy being fulfilled right now. It's unbelievable. But let me just give you a little bit more to back up what's happening right here. All right, also in the last several months, Israel was getting ready to annex some land. And now, once again, you won't see this on national news or in televised or local news, but it is a very big deal. Israel was going to take this land. They're growing over there. They're growing like crazy. They're developing land. They're growing like never before. The land is beautiful and fertile, just like God said it would be right there in Ezekiel 36. When he restores Israel back to their land, he will make it like the Garden of Eden. And they are. It's a very beautiful. As a matter of fact, some of the fighting right now over there is water rights over the Jordan River. All right, so God is doing exactly right now what he said he would do. All right, several thousand years ago. And Israel was saying, we're going to annex some of this land, because if you will pull up a current map of Israel, they do not own all of Israel. All right, the Palestinians have been given sections. As a matter of fact, the world, all of the world, the United Nations, the many big organizations of the world have been saving money trying to develop what they're calling a Palestinian state, a land, a property where the Palestinians have their own land, because all of Israel during the Ottoman Empire, all the way back to the time of Jesus when the Romans took that land over, so roughly 70 AD-ish when they destroyed the temple, all the way up to the Ottoman Empire of the early 1900s, was called Palestine. All right, all of that land right there, Israel as we know it today, was called Palestine. Well, they're wanting to once again establish a Palestinian state. All right, and they have millions, probably billions or trillions of dollars set aside to do this with, all right, to help them get it. Well, Israel, some of that land that they're wanting to do it with, Israel is saying, no, that is our land. We're claiming that land. We're going to build and develop that land. And it is creating quite the conflict, all right? As a matter of fact, June 24th of 2020, their new border plans, it says, leaves the Palestinians in a bind, more or less. February 19th, 2020, Israel is eager to annex West Bank lands. All right, June 18th, 2020, Netanyahu plans to annex parts of West Bank. All right, so now here's what happens. As they're talking about annexing this land, the world, listen to me, you don't believe me? Go and type in Israel annex, and then type in any country beside that and look at what their world leaders are talking about. Prime ministers to presidents to kings to whoever the case may be. They are saying, you better not, Israel, you better not do this. All right, Israel says, we're doing it. And here's the thing. Netanyahu clearly said, we have never had better relations with America. America is the only nation in the world that was backing Israel to do this. So you have Israel and America versus the world. All right. And Israel was getting ready to do this middle of 2020, and COVID has created setbacks. As a matter of fact, Benjamin Netanyahu even made the statement, we are not sure if Donald Trump will win this election, so therefore we need to annex this land immediately while we still have the backing of the United States of America, because Joe Biden has very clearly said, we will not support you in annexing this land. All right. Barack Obama was very much for a Palestinian state. All right. So there again, he is just picking right back up where Obama left off. And then once again, there's another key factor right here with the Biden administration. He is wanting to reinstate the Iran nuclear deal, all right, which Israel was, is, and always has been against. Israel says no, they are too close. They want everything to do with Iran having nuclear weapons totally wiped out. All right, well, the first thing that Donald Trump did when he came into office was got rid of one of the first things. I'm not going to say the first, but one of the first things he did was gotten rid of the nuclear deal. And Israel was very happy about that. All right. Well, now Joe Biden is clearly saying we're going to get this nuclear deal going again. But then something happened. And there again, a lot of this is not on your news. You must look these things up. But in November the 28th, 2020, a article was posted, the assassination of a scientist who leads Iran's pursuit of a nuclear weapon. Their key scientist in Iran was assassinated. Now, this is huge, and many people are blaming Israel for this. They're saying one of Israel's top agents went in there and did this. And here's the thing, Israel's not saying we did or we didn't do this. They're not saying either way. But what is ironic about this is many believe that assassinating this guy would really set back Iran from being able to create nuclear weapons. All right. So, and in this news article, it clearly says that assassination in Iran could limit Biden's options. Was that the goal? Question mark. All right, so that's what I'm saying. A lot of things are going on behind the scenes with Israel that we don't realize. Now, let's just take a step back for a minute. All right, let's say all these things that I've just talked about are true. Where does that leave Israel? Now, I'm not going to say that America and Joe Biden don't have relationships, all right? I'm not going to say that we will kick Israel to the curb as a nation, that we don't care about Israel. I'm not going to go that depth. I'm not going to say it's not impossible, but I'm not going to go that far out. All right. But here's what I am going to say. Israel and Joe Biden administration will not have the same support level as they currently have had under Donald Trump. All right. So now here's where you're at. Things are coming. Things are coming down the pipeline right now. If Israel were to annex this land right now, we are days from Donald Trump being removed from office and Joe Biden being put in office. All right. If Israel were to annex this land right now, the world would come down on Israel. Major power sources, armies would come upon Israel right now. And America, listen to me, y'all, would not help Israel. We would not support and help Israel with military things to help Israel during this time when these nation rise up against it. We just would not do it. Now, many of you may not like that statement, but it's just a fact. Joe Biden has very clearly said, if Israel annexes this land, we will not support them. All right, so now here we go again. Israel is not, America is not mentioned in the Bible. Now, I will tell you this, though. You can go all the way back to the land, to Genesis, when God told Abraham, everywhere you look in every direction, this land will be yours. As a matter of fact, he even gave him property lines, all right? He told him the property lines. And I'm not going to get into that right now, but here's the thing. That's Israel's land, all right? Given to them by God, not by man, by God. So Israel can do whatever they want, and they have God's support. That's what matters. All right, but back to current events. Israel takes this land, they will be alone. All right, they have plans to take this land. They have plans to keep Iran from having another nuclear deal. All right, they are not. They do not and will not have the relationship and or support of America like they have had. So here's what's going to happen. Israel will be left alone. That puts America once again out of the picture, out of the Bible. Now, I'm out of time, but we are going to pick up next week in Ezekiel 38, and I'm going to tie in all of these events I've just given you with a worldwide major event that's going to take place on Israel. Thank you, everyone, for listening today. If you would like to know how to become a born-again child of God, or maybe you just need prayer. Maybe you have something in your life and you just need prayer right now. Please be sure to comment in the comments below, and we will be sure to get back to you. Thank you again for listening.
Well, everyone, that is the end of our podcast for today. If you enjoyed our podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe and the little bell to be notified when the new podcasts are released. If you'd like to give to our ministry, please go to worship@woodland.com/give, and in the comments, put podcast. If you'd like to mail us a check, you can mail it to 114 Bayview Drive, Phoenix City, Alabama, 36869.